needs. This is Ashley Jones coming at you with another live stream, and it's good to see you. So tonight, I've hit a couple people's questions about sensory issues, fears, things that are really common for those with sensory issues and or special needs. Having sensory issues may actually also be caused by fears, special needs, and many other things can cause it too. Some people who are not special needs can have sensory issues. So, in terms of what is a sensory issue necessarily at Disneyland, a sensory issue can typically be a ride, whether it's dark, loud, wet, a combination of those. Another one I know that used to get to me, to be honest, was when there was a villain in a Disney attraction that I wasn't typically always fond of. And which was when it was Snow White's Scary Adventures, I was really afraid of the dark forest scene in that attraction. It made me go pretty much clinging to my dad for dear life, who usually took me on that ride when I was younger. Another one that used to kind of give me the creeps a little bit was Maleficent's laugh. If she had an appearance such as Phantasmic or other roles like in shows, I was did not like Maleficent either. She still has a wicked laugh. And when I was little, even though Ursula didn't have a ride until I was older in the Little Mermaid ride, I was scared to pieces of Ursula. When we would be watching Little Mermaid, I would hide under my little pink blanket every time she came on. It was pretty funny now that I think about it. But you also have to agree, Ursula also has a frightening laugh. She is a menacing character, and it's hard because a lot of kids and adults may go, "Oh, I'm not really afraid of those." Well, there's a lot of people who are, and it's okay because I tell people that I know, like my Disneyland special needs group members, um, that it's okay to be fearful. Everybody has those days. And it's hard because for me now, and one thing I don't care for in terms of a sensory thing is maybe a loud musical score in some places in the park. I like music, but sometimes it can get a little loud depending on where you're standing or sitting, especially if it's a villain or a really loud character. I remember first time seeing World of Color, which came out when I was younger. I was a little bit scared of the music at first. Probably to me, it seemed louder than Phantasmic. And I think it was. Thumbs up if you agree with that um thing right there. Anyway, another thing I would like to ask anybody, and leave it in the comment section below. What is one of your sensory fears or feeling of dread when you're in the parks? Or something you just cannot stand? It could even be a sensory thing such as food or sight, too. Another thing, and I'll be perfectly honest with all of you, I hate automatic toilets. To this day, I hate automatic toilets. Since there's so many of them at the park, every time it goes off on me, sometimes I just about jump off because it will just be so loud. It's frightening for a lot of people. That's why you find kids a lot of times scream when the toilets go off in the bathroom. I want to do the same thing, but I find myself covering my ears more. It's hard because a lot of people today don't always treat those with certain sensory issues very kindly, but we're here to combat that. Give a thumbs up if you have a sensory issue and are not afraid to let somebody know it. It's okay for somebody to have special needs, sensory issues, and many other difficulties. Disneyland, as we all know, is very diverse in that sense. There's people who go to the parks with all sorts of things that they just can't help. And I'm proud of being able to be not only my own advocate, but an advocate for others because I know what it's like. And the other one that used to give me the absolute chills in terms of sound or anything in that matter, I used to be deathly afraid of Stromboli in Pinocchio. Stromboli is a loud character in Pinocchio. He's very mean to Pinocchio and other characters in the film, and not somebody you want to mess with. Um, I was also thinking now with all of the characters, I guess you can call it sensory when little kids are afraid of certain characters. Even little babies and toddlers who are like, oh my gosh, like they don't want to be with a character because they might be so big or they might be, and I see somebody's on, so hi. Let's see if you can post in the comment box who it is. I would love to get to know more people on here, so I'm glad somebody's on here. So if you have a question, please feel free to use the comment box. I'm here. Anyhow, another thing, so with the characters, some characters like Goofy, Pluto, Donald, and many others, they're tall. They're not tiny characters. Even Mickey and Minnie are bigger than me. It's so funny because I'm only 5'1", so the characters, of course, are gonna pretty much tower above me. There's really not a character that's not bigger than me. And now I look at the kids and everything that I've been around and will be with, and I'll go, yeah, I see what you mean. They're huge. That's because I'll tell you a funny secret. Many people kind of go, just how tall are some of those characters? Well, in another height thing I saw, Pluto and Goofy have some differences, but I think Pluto can be up to 6'3", and Goofy can be up to 6'6". Now that's huge. Realizing that my brother, who's 2 years younger than me, is 6'5". Yeah, like, can you imagine him as a mascot in a park? He'd be really intimidating. It's frightening for kids to realize if they're getting towered over, it gets to be kind of a shocking experience. Another thing is food. Now, I have a good reason to not like the food that I also hate. Not only do I hate the smell of all fish, but there's a good reason for it. I'm allergic to it. I cannot touch or eat any of that stuff in terms of what might happen. I do not want to take the risk of going into anaphylactic shock. And for those that, like, I know, I'll be honest with this too. I'm getting allergy tested in March, and I'm kind of hoping from there that because of the risk of being allergic to all fish and who knows what else, I don't want to have to start carrying an EpiPen, but there might be a chance I might have to do that. But it's going to be whatever it will be. And I want to say to somebody who's kind of sensory about that too, like, oh no, I don't want somebody eventually to have to do that into my thigh. Well, what would you rather have? Uh, have the EpiPen and go to the hospital, or worse? It's hard because I hate needles to all end. I will be honest about so many things I still don't care for. Even at 30 years old, I'm like, certain things I'm never gonna really get over. And it's tough because a lot of people go, oh, like, how come you're afraid of that? You should be over that by now. No, it's okay to be afraid of certain things. And now I wanted to ask anybody too if they also don't, don't like a certain food, a certain snack, or even a certain drink at the Disneyland resort. Okay, for a food item, one thing I can eat, but I choose not to. I'm not a big thing of things with red velvet because it hurts my stomach, and cream cheese. I like a cream cheese stuff with bagels, but cream cheese and dessert sometimes don't mix with my stomach. I'm also not a huge fan of certain kinds of desserts that are too rich. Like, I'm not a big fan of flan. That, not my thing. In terms of an entree, I would say I don't like certain kinds of vegetables. Like, if a dish has Brussels sprouts, I'll be scooping those off or giving them to somebody else because it's just not my forte. Another thing I'll be perfectly honest with is certain dishes with too much onion. If it has too much onion, then I'm like, eh. Like, no, no, thank you. But it's really funny. For terms of maybe say an appetizer, I would say I kind of look at people eating like the garlic appetizers with whatever they are in the park, and I go, no, because too much garlic doesn't work for me either in that case. I have a lot of medical reasons for my sensory things, but I also have some sensitivities. Another way people can be told that they can do things sensory wise, even though it might be hard for them, is to realize that now I told you guys my dad passed away last in July, but I'll tell you what he said is this could go for everybody too. At Disneyland and other theme parks, if you go on a ride and you try it once and say that was too intense, then you don't have to go again. But it's always good to try it once and then say judge it from there, or even come up with a scale that says 1 through 5. 1, I really don't like that ride. I don't really want to go on that again. 2 would be, maybe I can try again, but I still may not like it. 3 might be, okay, I like this better now, but I'm still not sure how many more times I can do it. 4 would be getting a lot better. I could ride this a little more often. And 5 is, I could ride this all the time now. I'm no longer afraid. It worked for me because when I was young, like I said, the Snow White ride, which used to be Snow White Scary Adventures, was a very intense ride for me when the dark forest scene would come up and the witch was more prominent than ever. She'd open the door and, oh my gosh, you almost wanted to just hide instantly. She was very frightening. She would open the door with her cackle. But the only time she kind of gives me more the creeps now is when she has her laugh. Her laugh is pretty intense. The one thing I also don't care for a whole lot in that part of the ride is when you see her evil, I don't know what to call them. Are they vultures or crows? And the chills run up your neck and your spine with the cold air. I'm not a big fan of that whole feeling of cold running up your to give you the chills. I've never been a particular fan of that. So I've gotten a lot better over the years, and my mom and other family can agree. But I'm always going to struggle a little bit with certain sensory issues. Another thing I would say now, like I said with Pinocchio and Stromboli, Stromboli in the ride has a very menacing laugh, and he's just not a nice character, of course not. But the other ones are generally pretty tame. Like the evil, the Queen of Hearts in Alice in Wonderland and that ride. Yeah, she's loud, but she's not that scary in the ride. She's, I think she's more scary in the movie. Definitely. Um, is there any, other rides I'm afraid of? Well, I used to be, when I was younger, I also didn't always care for the judge in Mr. Toad's Wild Ride because he was pretty loud. At the time, when I was little, I used to cover my ears during that one scene. Oh, and then the sensory thing that other people may not like is that in Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, you go into a scene where it gets hot. And it does get pretty hot in that scene. We could agree with that one. So I always laugh now when I think about what I used to not like growing up. But my dad and I were on the same level when it was hot. That scene was hot enough to steam up your glasses. My dad and I both did not like getting hot because we sweat a lot. But my dad's gone now. But I'm going to say correctly, my dad used to sweat a lot, just like me. But it's really funny that my dad and I were on the same page with that ride. Another thing that was really funny was when I was little, there was a ride um, that I really wasn't too sure about, and that was Roger Rabbit. Roger Rabbit's cartoon spin is a loud attraction, but it's fun. The only thing I don't like in it is it has a few clowns. I'm deathly afraid of clowns. So sometimes I'll just sit there taking deep breaths and kind of going, I don't need to look at that. Look at all of the colorful other stuff inside the ride. Don't even look at those things. Or, give them a gesture like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'm away from you in 10 seconds. Yeah, it's not easy to be afraid of something that culture in this country, there's a lot of that. Sadly, clowns, scary creatures, clown movies, you name it. I think we need to pull back from some of those things. But I don't think it's going away, unfortunately, even though it should. Another thing I would be willing to share with people too is also with certain things at Disneyland, we can agree that crowds can be another sensory issue. Some people don't like crowds. They get claustrophobic and they just go, why are all these people like hunched in here with me? Like, yeah. Some people need to go take a breather. And while that might be most of the time okay with you, if you're in a larger group, that can be just a little bit frustrating because your group might be ready to go on another attraction, but you're like frozen as a statue or very uncomfortable about going to another attraction. Breathe, think about how much fun you're having, and realize that in a lot of ways, I'm going to say this as nice as I can, but it's not all about you when you're in a big group. You have to kind of realize that your group is there for you too, and for them to have fun as well. So if you can, find a way to calm down if you're starting to have a giant sensory overload with crowds. Because then, once you learn to manage it, things will get a lot better. Another thing I've been asked now is really interesting to me, and it's kind of off topic, is what's one incident you've seen with somebody that was not in your party having a slightly big sensory overload or a behavioral crisis? Well, I would say the worst thing I've ever had to deal with was on the Little Mermaid ride when it got stuck around Christmas. This little boy had to be, I'd say 8 or 9, and he did not like it when we got stuck in front of Ursula for a good 5 minutes. Now, that used to be what I would have been afraid of too, but I grew out of it but knew what he was feeling like. But after 5 minutes of having him screaming and crying and carrying on, it got to be a bit much. Not just for me, but for everybody else involved in the stuck in the ride. It made some people go like, "Oh, come on, like tell this kid to cork it. Like, why is he crying? Get us out of here. We don't want to sit in this ride vehicle anymore." And other things. It happens. You get stuck in places sometimes you just can't help. And one way you can cope with the fact that sometimes rides get stuck, breathe. Do not ever try to stand up or get out of the vehicle. Realize that you're not in it alone. And realize that, once again, it's not all about you, it's about safety. And if you do try to get out of your ride vehicle, surprise, you're on camera. And Disneyland cast members and security will see you, and most likely you will be escorted with your party out of the park, either for a day, a week, or forever. Don't be that part of that crowd, please. We don't want to see anything like that. Like what happened with It's a Small World last time. Oh, please. We don't need a rerun of that again. There's a lot of things that have been happening in the park that I have to say I've been shocked about, and I really hope I never know anybody that does anything like that. And it's really hard because, as much as some people do not like what's happening in the ride, last thing you want is, what if you got out of an attraction and it started up and you got hurt or killed? Not worth it. No way. Look at some of the people that died at Disneyland were not at fault, but there were a few that unfortunately could have been prevented. Look at the Disneyland videos on YouTube about people that have passed, and you'll see what I mean. It's not a pretty picture. And if anything, now I've really taken for granted too and been fortunate that I've gotten to know so many cast members at the park and said, I feel really blessed that the cast members are there keeping us safe. But it starts with you too. It starts with you knowing how to stay in the ride vehicle, behave, and do your best to really enjoy the park. Now, another thing I've been asked, some of these topics are very interesting. So, one of them now has been when you're in the park, what have you chosen never to wear? Um, I don't wear short shorts, no way. Even if I was thinner, I would never wear a crop top or a halter top. Um, I'm not a huge fan of super heavy jackets. So unless it's winter and I bring my bigger one, I don't typically do that because I'm pretty hot blooded. Another thing I choose not to wear is tees with any scary characters or anything like that. I keep things very family friendly. I've seen people bring some very strange villain Disney shirts, and some of them are a bit scary. It's hard to realize too that some people come into the park in flip flops. Oh my gosh, please don't wear flip flops to the park. They're not good for your feet. They will actually cause foot problems in the long run, and they don't do you any justice when you get blisters on your feet in the parks. I also don't really recommend any kind of sandals, but besides maybe Croc sandals, those are better than any other kind of sandals. Crocs are always a good thing, even though some doctors like mine kind of go, well, Crocs are not the most supportive, but they work in the park. I have noticed way less pain in my feet when I wear my Crocs. Oh, winter boots, certain kinds, don't go there. I made a horrible mistake around Christmas time wearing my boots with this kind of soft lining in it. I don't know how, but I got blisters. I think my feet got too hot and they got too much moisture, so it caused friction. So another thing is, so anyway, sorry for a second, I'm moving. But the last thing I'm really going to say is whatever you're comfortable wearing with footwear, clothes, please be respectful. Don't wear anything that's too showy. I have seen people wearing stuff in the park that I go, why are you wearing that? Like, I can see things I don't want to look at. You might have the body for it, but I don't think it's appropriate in the theme park. Some cast members will put a stop to some of the outfits, but sometimes I think people get away with a little too much. Thumbs up if you agree with that one. It's hard. I also do not recommend wearing shoes without socks. No. For one, your feet again will sweat really bad and give you friction inside your sneakers and give you blisters for the most part. And it's also not advisable to wear really super thin, cheap, flimsy sneakers. They might rip, they might start having holes, and you'll have to go to the Emporium or something and get some Crocs. And it's not what you want. So don't be that person that makes those mistakes. This will be the last minute, and then I'm going to go off for the night. But if anybody so far has any questions for the last few seconds, I would like to know if anybody has any more questions. The final thing I'm going to say is another thing that I would recommend people to do is the day before you come to Disneyland, make sure all your affairs are in order. You got your ticket or your magic key reservation. If you use a magic band, make sure you got it and it's charged. Cell phone and mobile bank, most likely you should bring a power bank because throughout the day when you're on your phone so much for the stuff in the parks, your phone battery will die. So, those are the kind of things that I will tell you in this video, and I'm going to go for now. So, this will be, I'll be checking out now. Have a great night. Bye.